Heidi ho, everybody. How are you today? I hope you had a fantastic Monday. I hope the start to the week went off well. Sorry if the weekend went too quick, but we did get an extra hour at least with the clocks going back, so there's always good news to tell somewhere. Anyway, I'm Phil Russert, and this is Creatorcon Q&A, and we have an episode tonight because we didn't want to compete with the show that's going to go on tomorrow, and we all know what show that's going to be, but we're going to stay away from that for now. Um, so hey Lou, thanks for coming on, man. So I appreciate everybody who comes out tonight and hang out. We're just going to chat comics and art because I have an awesome artist tonight. You have to see the stuff this guy does. It's phenomenal. He's from Australia, and he's just phenomenal. You got to see this Spider-Man stuff he's doing, the villains that he's going to show during the show. Anyway, before we get into all of that, just real quick, a few shout-outs. They won't be long, but again, December 6th, the Suffolk Comic and Art Expo show in Suffolk County. Please come on out December 6th, 10 to 6 p.m. A lot of local artists. We also have Billy Tucci, Larry Stroman, Keith Williams, Rodney Ramos, you name it, and they're there. Unfortunately, Sean Chen had to cancel his appearance due to some personal issues, but he will be back and stronger than ever at the next one. I also just want to let you guys know that if you have any comic needs, go to Mad Titan Comics on Instagram. It's MadTitan_comics. If you want dollar issues, you want key issues, slabbed issues, Eric Gunderson is the owner-operator. You can find that on Facebook. Find him there. He will be the man to help you out. And I think he's doing a show this coming weekend out near him in Arizona. Anyway, we've also got It Came From the Radio, which is an online radio show hosted by Mark Torres. They do everything pop culture, indie culture, a lot of news. They have special guests. I'm going to be a guest, I believe, in 2 weeks on that show. So whether you come to listen to mine or any other, it's a really good show. Please go check it out. Hey, Russ, what's going on? John's here. Thanks, guys, for coming out. I appreciate it. Thanks, Lou. Also, we have Let's Do This, Andy Lee, the wonderful human being that does all of my promotional graphics. If it wasn't for him, I would really look like a slob because I am not technically savvy. So thank you, Andy Lee. That's www.letsdodis.com, LESDUDIS.com. And lastly, we have, of course, Enrique Lopez, which I tell you every show. He just had his show, Inking with Kike, at 8 p.m. on Instagram tonight. Every Monday night, 8 p.m., Inking with Kike. Go check it out on his Instagram. It's The Art of Kike, Q-U-I-Q-U-E. Anyway, so now that we got that all the way, I do just want to say, hey, Wade's here. What's up, buddy? Wade was a guest just recently. We had a great time talking with him, so thanks for coming out. If Russ ever wants to come on, you're welcome to be a guest, my friend. I did just want to say this to everybody. Everything is kind of in turmoil right now. People are at odds. Facebook can get ugly, etc. But I have to say that the comic community is a wonderful community. There's so many wonderful indie books out there right now. Russ Cassidy is attached to one now, Hellbringer. You got Mojo Rising with Greg Harms and Raj Mahan. I don't know if I pronounced his name right. Sorry. There's a lot of great books out there. So this is what brings us together. This is what really makes us feel united. I love comic books. I love art. I love superheroes. I love what superheroes were supposed to represent, used to represent, hopefully still do. So I really encourage everybody to please, let's embrace this community, support each other, give us exposure. If you see an artist you really like, share it. Share their posts, get them out there, let them know. As a matter of fact, tonight's guest is an amazing artist that I didn't know about until someone brought him to my attention. So it's wonderful because now I'm enriched by the fact that I get to find new art. And this art is phenomenal. Just wait until you see it. Ryan, I hope you have a happy birthday tomorrow, my friend. I'm sure I'll get the notification. I will wish you a happy birthday. Hey, Bill, thanks for showing up. So I just want to tell everybody, please, let's support each other. Let's unite. Let's be strong together. And there's so many amazing artists out there that you might not know of at this very moment. But if people share and give exposure, you'll know them tomorrow and you'll be happier for it. So that's all I'm going to say. Lastly, I'm going to say, please share this live right now to as many people as possible so we can give our guest a lot of exposure. He's a really good human being on top of being an amazing artist. So please share live right now. Everybody watching, share live right now and give them some love. And lastly, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's Creatorcon event. I know I'm supposed to say hit the bell. I know people hate alerts. If you hit the bell, great. Thank you. Get the alerts. If you don't hit the bell, just please subscribe. Anyway, now that that's all done and we got some people in the room, I want to introduce a fantastic artist from Australia. His name is Will Pleydon.
Hello,
Will,
how are you going?
how are you? We tried to get the cameras going, unfortunately, everybody, but we were getting feedback issues, delays, yada, yada, yada. So we decided he's gonna show his artwork. Look at that artwork. I mean, before I even speak to Will, look at that. It's incredible. Look at the Rhino, Sandman. Look at Shocker in the bottom. I mean, my God. And it's just amazing. So anyway, Will, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
How's everything going down under?
Oh, well, I suppose we're all experiencing similar things across the world, but we're moving into warmer weather, which is good. And I'm out here in the country, so we're probably not as affected as the cities with what's going on around the place at the moment.
And where in Australia are you?
So I'm in a town called Tabletop, and Tabletop sits on the border of New South Wales and Victoria.
Okay.
So we're about maybe an hour and a half from where like the Manfred Snow River was, that movie. So we get the cold of the winter, but we certainly really get the hot summers as well. So I live out here on a bit of 5 acres with my family, so a nice bit of land and plenty of room to move around in, which is good.
Russ had asked, will Sydney or Perth side?
So Sydney side. So if you look for the town of Albury, Aulbury, that's where I live. I live just outside of Albury.
Nice. I want to. It's one of my places I want to visit is Australia, despite the fact that snakes, alligators, giant scorpions, and all that is not my thing.
Yep. There's lots out here that can kill you, but we don't have grizzly bears and wolves and stuff like that as well. So.
Yeah, but grizzly bears I don't find them in the closet in my house or on my bed or crawling on me while I'm sleeping.
That's true.
You know, I mean, you're lucky you get me to go to Texas with the size of the scorpions out there.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting.
Before we go tonight, though, you have to say, that's a knife. That's not a knife.
You want me to do the Crocodile Dundee accent?
Yeah, there you go.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So what are you working on right there?
So this piece I started, I suppose I get a little bit ambitious every time Inktober rolls around. And I tend to bite off more than I can chew, but I use it as a good opportunity to do some side projects, you know, other than some of the other art that I do, because I sort of range from everything from comic books to wilderness paintings to portraits to animals, you name it. But doing this stuff, this is a kind of release, you know, you're not sort of constrained by sometimes by request of the client or even trying to get things approved as you're going. I can sort of let loose a little bit and stretch a few muscles. So this piece here is basically 31 of the Spider-Man's Road Gallery. And I've chosen just to do it in 3 colours to give it that kind of crime noir sort of feeling, a real sort of 1940s gangster movie kind of feel. Even though it's a bit tricky with his one, it's not like the one I did with the Batmans where that tends to lean into that genre nice and easily. This one, the costumes are more outlandish and colourful, so it's kind of a bit tricky to kind of work around it. But you can get some good classics like Kingpin and a few others to see. Do you want me to give you a bit of a pan and scan so you can see the whole thing?
Sure. I mean, look at that rhino. My God.
Let me have a. I won't be able to see the screen, so you just have to tell me if I've gone too far.
Sure. There's a Green Goblin and Sandman, and look at that Venom. Look at that classic Doc Ock too. Awesome. Yeah, you're good there. And then go down. If you can go. Oh, you're gonna. Okay. So look at that lizard. It looks real. Wow. And the vulture. That's incredible. Look at that Shocker. I love that Shocker. He was always one of my favorite villains that's underused.
Yeah, he's underplayed a bit. And then I've got Mysterio and the Black Cat and the Kingpin up the corner.
Oh, I love the reflection in Mysterio's helmet. That's awesome. Yeah. Black Cat. Look at that. That's incredible. And you're going to have these available as prints?
Yes. So as soon as I get these done, so hopefully they'll be ready probably early December, I would say.
So, how would someone reach out to you? The Facebook that's scrolling below, your Will Pleydon, would that be the best place to DM you to
I
get
think so.
commissions?
I mean, that tends to be the most frequented spot that I'm on. I'm on Instagram as well. I kind of put the tendrils out to everywhere. So you can reach me on YouTube as well. I've got a YouTube channel, and I
Oh,
post
dude, why didn't
videos
you
up
let me
there.
put that in the scroll then?
So that's well, I suppose Facebook's the one that I visit the most. So if you ever really wanted to get me straight away, Facebook's the one to reach out to me on. So you can look up the Art of Will Pleydon or just Will Pleydon on Facebook, and just make sure you check the photo. It's a photo of me with Walt Disney. Don't choose my dad because my dad's got Will Pleydon as his name as well. you could ask him for some commissions, but I don't know what the result's going to look
You
like.
might get six figures, right?
You could end up with anything. I don't know. It
Two
might
hundred
not be
dollars.
appropriate.
Just to give you a little feedback because you're not able to see the chat. Bradney, who's a regular on the show, hey Bradney, thanks for showing up. He said he would love that on his wall. Russ Cassidy,
Excellent.
colorist, he just said wow with 3 exclamation points.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you.
He was also saying how beautiful the cities in Australia are. He was there in the Navy. Thanks for your service, Russ.
Yes.
It was a blast. So you before we get into like your art history and things like that, right now obviously you're penciling. Who are you drawing? Tombstone?
So I'm doing Tombstone at the moment, but I'm going to try and give him the classic sort of prison uniform, which is I tend to go to what I remember as a kid, and the Tombstone in the prison uniform was always one that, almost like a hired hitman kind of thing. So I guess I'm trying to go with like more of a James Coburn kind of look about him, with the heavy eyebrows and the.
And you pencil this and you're coloring it. You're just doing traditional colors over it, like exactly
Yeah.
how we see it. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I tend to work in traditional mediums only because I find it. I prefer the medium more than digital. I just tend to like the quality that it gives. It gives more of a tactile feeling
Right.
to the artwork, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing people hang the originals. So I enjoy that process a lot more. But so the process will be I'll pencil it in first. Then I just run a wash of black over it. You'll probably see me do that today. And then I start layering in the colors. And I use gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. And what's great about that medium is that, especially in Australia, like the heat gets very hot. So mediums dry out very quickly. Whereas gouache, I can reactivate. It's something that I can open up again a couple of days later by adding a bit of water or a bit of moisture to it. And I can reactivate that color or that layer, and to add a new fresh layer on top. So it's a lot more productive than acrylics for me, or mainly watercolor either, or ink for that matter as well.
So what size is the board that you're putting all of these on? Because you're creating your own jam piece here. I mean, obviously you're the
I
owner.
do, yeah. So it's about, I'd say it's probably close to, it's a reduced size, so it's more of a panoramic size, but it would probably be close to just short of an A1 size if you look at paper sizes. I'll give you a scale idea. There's A4, right? So you can
A4,
see the
yeah, I know
idea.
that's close to 11 by 17. It's like I
Yeah,
think it's like 11 and a half by 16 or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So it gives you a
So,
bit of a scale.
so are you looking to sell this whole board, this whole piece you're working on right now with all these heads on it at some point?
Well, generally, I don't tend to, only because I suppose more locale rather than anything. But I think too, I mean, the conventions in Australia are not quite as, let's say, luxurious as the ones in America.
Right.
So the clientele that you get there are often more cosplay focused.
Um,
And you do get I think we are getting more of an indie following, I think, in terms of comic book creators. I think people are starting to look towards that a little bit more, but people don't often go there, I don't find, to buy art as much as they're more buying prints, and they're buying comic books and mainly toys and cosplay. So even though I take original work with me, it doesn't always translate to sales. So this one here will obviously be first available for print. But I'll show you something. I'll just open up this little folder I've got here. and I'll show you some of the other sizes that I work on, so you can see. So these are ones that I take to Comic-Con as well. So
Look at that. Oh man.
So you can see the color of the gouache. I don't know if
Oh,
that's
is
translating
that
to
the
the camera.
original?
That's an original. So that's the original there. But
I'm
so
just going
I've
to tell you now, if you ever take a vacation in New York, take it around the time that I have my show.
Sounds good.
You would kill at my show.
I'd love to come to your show.
You would kill at my
That's
show.
a Dengar. I don't know if you can see that
Oh, he's one
there.
of my favorites. Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty fun.
What do
But
you
I
originals
think,
go for?
well, it depends on the size, really. And I think, like I was saying, the clientele at Comic Cons don't always pay what you'd normally earn in the commercial art world. I mean, so you've got to scale it differently. So if I was doing, I'll just show you one that I'm working on at the moment for a company in Australia that does, it's a distillery. So they do vodkas and scotches and whiskies. So I'm working on an owl at the moment. So I'll just show you the price range that might show you a bit of difference between the commercial world and comics. So that's the owl that I'm working on.
Oh, nice. Look at that.
So that owl will fetch about $1,000 as a final painting. And it's mainly to do with the size, but you can see the layers from the final feathers to the early stages. You can't ask that in the comic world. It doesn't quite, I'm not an Alex Ross that can just go say.
The gallery world is different than the comic world. I was just having this conversation with someone recently, actually, as far as pricing.
It's just different expectations, and like I said, I'm not an Alex Ross that can charge 20 grand for a Superman painting. It's just a different world, and you just have to accept that, and a lot of us do it because we just love the genre.
Well, I accept that you're not as expensive as Alec Ross, and I appreciate that because once I'm working again, I want first dibs at that Spider-Man board you're on right now. If you sell the original, I want first dibs. Well, I can't say that, but if those Star Wars guys are still available, we need to talk.
Well, there's the Batman I did a couple of years ago.
Oh my God!
So that's the villain, the Rogues Gallery of Batman.
That? Can you show us all of that?
Yeah. What can you see? Can you see the penguin?
The penguin. Yep.
And then Catwoman. You got the Scarecrow.
Joker.
You've got Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
You've got Clayface.
Oh, Man-Bat.
Man-Bat and
Freeze.
The good Mr. Freeze. Yes.
God, that's so. That is amazing work, Will.
So I do ones that are black and white based like that, or I can do color ones like that, which is the Wolverine. If you can see that one there. So, guys,
whoever's watching right now, if you're seeing this art, you've got to hook him up. You've got to go and get a commission from this guy. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
So besides the still artist work, which is that kind of stuff, the portraits and the figures, I've done a little bit of comic book work as well. But my process is, of course, a lot slower than than just penciling. It takes a little bit longer, and that's only because every little panel is fully painted. But there's the Harley Quinn. I don't know if you can see that there.
Wow, classic too. I prefer classic Harley Quinn.
Yeah, the Paul Dini Harley Quinn. Like I said, I tend to go to what I remember and what's nostalgic for me as well.
Oh my God.
That's the Princess Leia.
This is unbelievable. I'm thinking Mando and the Child.
Yes, love Mando.
My mother came in. She said hello. She wanted to know where you lived in Australia. We answered earlier. And he wrote up. Someone wrote up in the thing, but I'll tell you later, Mom.
Yeah.
John Ottinger said he loves the work.
Oh, thank you, John.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of, and we have a few questions if I could get
fire away. Yep, go for it.
So Steve Garcia, who is an amazing animator himself, he said, I saw some of your, I'm sorry, I don't know this word, gouache sequentials?
Gouache. Yeah,
gouache sequentials. Yep. What do you do if you finish a painted page of sequentials, but an editor or you wants a change on one panel?
Well, it tends to be I'm really lucky. I've worked with excellent creators, and Andrew Shaw, who is a writer in Melbourne, that I've worked on with two of my projects now, or our co-created projects, has been fantastic. But I make sure, it's similar to illustration. I don't want to get to an end result or even midstream to a result without absolute communication with everyone. So it becomes a real process of making sure that they're happy with the early concept work before we get to the final painted image. But often when I'm going through a sequential page, and do you want to see some of the originals or the sequentials? So I
Show
can
us
get them out for you.
everything, dude. Let's do it.
All right, just give me a sec. I'll just grab it.
By the way, I just want to let you know. Oh, maybe he took off his headphones. All right, look at that. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I do a lot of thumbnails to start with, and I do a lot of concept art to show the creation of the characters, so that there's no surprises by the time I get to that point, and they go, well, that's not what was in my mind when I created the character, you know. And there's a lot of research that goes into it, like the book that I was doing, which was Cul-de-sac. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's you were kind enough to send it to me, and
Yeah,
it's a disturbing tale.
it is. So it's a 1950s anthology of stories. It's kind of like Creep Show or
Mhm.
one of those shows where they're an anthology of stories that are all kind of loosely linked together. And it's a similar process, but being as historically based, it took a lot of research to find out, you know, what is the right clocks and the backgrounds and the clothing, and a lot of late night phone calls to my dad and saying, you know, what kind of cars did you drive or what did you wear when you mowed the lawn? But trying to get the colouring right is always interesting as well. So you can see
Wow.
when I do my artwork, it's always laid out before I start because I don't need to be trying to juggle decision making at that level when I'm juggling paint at the same time. So Andrew, when I'm doing the artwork, I'll send Andrew all the thumbnails. So he'll have the thumbnails for the entire book there, and he'll look through and he goes, "Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it," or "I like. Can we make a change here?" And sometimes I ask to make a change. Sometimes I'll say, "Look, you know, can we include a different image for the montage page or whatever it might be?" Just because I felt like it made the story have an extra element to it. And I can give you an example where we did that change. So for one of the stories, this little boy discovers that his parents aren't, and spoilers too if you want to read the book, he discovers that his parents aren't what they appear to be, right? So, and they're like bat people. And so his neighbors were the same. And so he had to figure, and at the end of the story, basically, they feed on the child, which is pretty disturbing in itself. But the added element that we put to it was that the child was actually adopted, and that the shoe would go on the pile of other shoes, right? So that was an added thing that we put in at the end to show that this was not their kid. This was a collected kid that they'd raised. So, and it was really something, I suppose, that we just collaborated on. Okay, what's going to make this more of a creepy story? What's going to have a deeper resonance with people, especially if they have children? They become, you know, these kind of stories are upsetting. And if you're a dad like I am, I get upset by stories like that. You know, I still struggle to watch
children, right? I mean,
yeah, I struggle to watch nature documentaries because I can't go for the lion anymore.
yeah.
I'm like, where's the mother elephant? This is negligence. But
Just so
but
you
yeah,
know,
so
real
that's
quick, Lou said it's amazing artwork. Dell was saying how realistic it looks. And then Steve has another question. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. And so, oops, I just bumped the camera. But because there's a really early sketch that I did for Cul-de-sac, and you can see just sort of playing with what the boy would look like, you know, and you know, I don't know if you have these in America, but these Hills Hoist clotheslines were iconic for Australia in the 1950s.
Yeah, we don't really use them anymore, but we
Yeah,
we used in the past.
they're still prevalent out here. They haven't changed that much, really. But yeah, so just trying to get the look and feel, the aesthetic for the book is always important for me, and of course making sure that the characters are all spot on. And if you ever wanted to find out more about the Cul-de-sac book, it's on Comixology. You can buy it in Comixology, and it's also if you go onto Facebook and look up our publishing company, Will Comics, which is SHAWILL. We have all the stuff about Cul-de-sac on there, including some of the process images, the page by page I did from pencil to black and white to color, showing the step by step, and and it talks about our beginnings for season 2, which we've just started as well.
Awesome.
So,
If you like horror
yeah.
and comedy and beautiful visuals, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
Steve Garcia was asking, what is your turnaround time from start to finish on a page of painted sequentials?
Well, again, it depends on the size. So and the detail. I mean, if I'm doing lots of detailed rose patterned wallpaper, like I did for one of the pages, it takes a lot longer. But I probably each panel I think would take me. It takes me about 2 hours to sketch it all up in pencil, and then it takes me around about close to about maybe two hours per panel, depending on what's involved. So this one here, you can see the detail and the pattern work of the wallpaper would take me a lot less time than if I was doing this one, where the detail's minimized.
Right.
So sometimes it's about lighting. But I was probably expecting to turn around a page every 2 nights. That's what I was trying to push for, only because my job demands a bit of time at home as well.
Right.
But like pages like that one, that takes a lot longer.
Wow. Well, again, American comic book artists are usually not doing the entire page themselves. They'll just pencil it and send it
Right.
to an inker, and then the inker sends it to then they go to the colorist. But you're doing everything, and you're painting. You're traditionally
Yeah.
coloring. You're not digitally, so that's still a quick turnaround time.
Yeah, it's not bad, but I mean, I suppose that's a trained process. I mean, I can't afford to be luxurious in my time as a teacher in the classroom. If I'm showing a demonstration to 14 and 15-year-olds, I've got seconds of attention span to
Right.
try and get what I got to get out, and be convincing, but also be inspirational enough that they want to do it, but not too overwhelming that they give up. So it's trying to get the work out quickly and not having it back to them too long, to get the message out. So you train yourself to be fast, but slow when you need to be, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Angel Duran, who's actually going to be a guest in January, I believe, he's an artist, said, "Damn, that Sandman and Rhino are badass."
Thanks, Angel. I appreciate that.
And Lou asked, "Are you using Woodless graphite pencils or just F or B to 3B pencils?"
Well, traditionally, I started using just pencils. I mean, that was where I began as an artist in the '90s, and back then, I mean, like as a commercial artist, you tend to go where the trends are. Like if you like the world seems to be loving on horror films and horror streaming things, so you tend to get commissions based around that, or in times of turmoil, people like the horror movies, but they also like to look at wildlife. So you tend to go where the trends are. I mean, in the '90s, for me, it was I did a lot of Western portraits, a lot of Native Americans, a lot of Aboriginals, a lot of cowboys. So a lot of that was grey lead pencil. That's where I began, because colour was always a bit scary for me. It was always something I found hard to tackle.
Looks like you overcame that pretty fast.
Well, you'd be surprised. Every painting I do, I can see a million mistakes and a million little victories. But I think when you stop having those victories, you're not sort of pushing yourself as hard as you should be, because that's where the learning is. Every time you make a mistake, you've learned something amazing. But yeah, to answer your question, I use a B pencil because I feel that being that's reasonably close to the middle of the range without being a HB, which is a writing pencil. The B pencil gives you a nice broad range of softness and darkness, but allows you to fill in that first layers of grains on your page, so that when you overlay your 2B, 3B, or your 4B, you create a nice softness to your pencil work. I mean, if that's what you're purely doing. If I'm doing sequential work, I tend to lean away from anything that's going to create any residue on the page, especially if I'm painting on top, because I don't want things showing through, and I don't want it getting muddy.
Right.
So I don't want scratches in the paper either. So I won't go with a H pencil because it's too sharp. That's why you see a lot of pencilers use HBs, even though writing pencils, they kind of float between the softness of the lead. But I just tend to use Bs. They're a nice middle range for me. Does that answer the question? Is that what you're
Yes,
after?
thank
Yeah.
you. And I have a question because this is a new term. I didn't know what gouache sequentials are.
Oh, okay. Well, I chose gouache, I suppose.
What is
Um,
gouache? That's what I don't know.
so gouache is an opaque watercolor. So it's like watercolor paint, but it's thicker. And it's actually a designer's medium. It was used a lot in the old days for poster art, for early graphic design before computers, because it holds a lot of a heavy chroma. So there's a lot of color in the actual paint. So that's why when I pull out Greedo, it pops off the page. It doesn't need any adjustment digitally because the chroma in the paint's very bright.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I'm
when
partially
you,
colorblind. That was bright for me. It
yeah,
pops.
and it's really interesting, like when I've scanned my sequentials and I've put them through the manga art program. I put the speech balloons and all that to it. Often Andrew would only ever see that version of it, but when I've gone down to Comic Cons, I've bought the originals, and they're just so different. They just hold so much more color. So um, there's something about the gouache that's pretty magical. It tends to have a lot of very deep hues and chromas in the color that tend to pop off the page, which I love because it allows you to do those layers. Even if you're doing whites on fabric, like Princess Leia, you can do those layers that really sort of stand out.
Steve followed up. You wanted to ask, do you prefer the gouache to say oils mainly because of the faster dry times, or are there other
Yeah.
reasons as well for the preference?
Well, I like the, I was trained traditionally in oils when I went to college, but I don't. Oils are more of a buttery texture, and if you use oils a lot, you know what I mean. It's got a slippery, buttery texture to it, and it's a lot slower in terms of its layers. I like gouache because my time sometimes can be pretty precious in the times I get to the drawing board. So I
Right.
want to get in, I want to get started, I want to get straight to it. I don't want to be mixing up huge palettes or wait. I don't have time to wait for a week of drawing in winter or even longer. I need a couple of hours and I'm back into it again. So um, for me, it's really the economy of time that I have,
Right.
but also I prefer the manageability of the paint much better. I still paint in oils, but it's something I do on the side that's a much longer process. And yes, oils have the same sort of chroma as gouache does in a lot of ways. It holds its own color. You don't need to varnish it as much like an acrylic painting, but it's just something about the gouache. It's just the immediacy of being able to get down and do it. Like I could do one of these little postcard squares in a night,
Right.
whereas if I did it as an oil painting, it would take me a lot longer.
To do each layer dry and then gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You need to
Especially
get
especially if you're going with a very Renaissance technique of doing your washes and your layers of your mediums at the top, like a Rembrandt or something in those styles. I mean, you're really working up over a long period of time to get that kind of chiaroscuro depth, which is basically the light and the dark, like I've done with Rhino. It's
right.
the darkness and the low light, the small amount of lighting on his face that makes him stand out.
You really need to get your work into an art gallery here in New York City. I'm telling you, you could start raking in some dough.
A bit
No,
of
I'm
comic
not
work.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not kidding. Lou has another question. I also
yeah.
want to just remind everybody, please, you see the quality of his art, share this out, share it out live. Let everybody see his work, Will's work. I mean, it's phenomenal. In just a few minutes, look what he's done already with the face of Tombstone while talking with us. So please share this live, everybody. So Lou, sorry, I'm having trouble with my throat today.
It's all right. I can see
Lou
you're a bit
asked,
emotional.
yeah, I'm verklempt. I'm verklempt. Uh, Lou said I have issues with that. I hate it when dust from lead graphite ends up on the art. How do you
Yeah,
prevent that? I've been using a plastic comic sleeve over the sketches now, but doesn't always work.
yeah. It is a tough one. I think and I tried to veer away from a fixative spray. Back when I started, the teachers I had who weren't really great at specialising in realism would say, "Oh, just spray it with fixative, or spray it with a hairspray or a lacquer," but that affects the paper, and it doesn't age well over time. So it is a tricky one. I mean, it really is something where um, I hate it too, especially when you got pages together and you go, oh my God, it's smeared onto the other side. The best advice I can give you is if you are presenting it as a portfolio piece, or you're putting something away in a plastic sleeve, is I tend to slide a nice bit of quality of cartridge just over the top of it as a shield. And it's not perfect, but it will at least preserve your artwork a little bit better. And make sure you're drawing on good quality paper. Even the books that you buy, like these little ones, little art books, they're not great. They don't hold your layers as well.
Right.
They don't tend to they tend to flake and peel and buckle. You're much better. Like, I mean, I'm drawing on illustration board here that I bought overseas from America. But also, I use mainly Bristol because even my sequentials are all on Bristol because they just have a deeper thickness to the GSM of the paper. So it tends to hold its medium in the page much better. So when I put a bit of paper over the top of it, there's less fear of me losing the image over the top. But you just got to handle it with care, I guess. And when I've taken work overseas to Comic Cons to show work, I've had pencil work in there as well. And it just tends to be okay. You just got to make sure it's not sliding around too much. You can seal it on the back like with a bit of tape to the back plastic, and it doesn't slide around as much. But it's just one of those handle with care situations, I suppose.
Yeah, he says Lou said he uses mostly Strathmore and Canson brand paper.
Yeah, Strathmore's good. I like Strathmore.
I know you're a teacher, obviously, and we'll get into that, but don't you you should do some like virtual tutorials for people. Just what you've said now has probably helped a lot of aspiring artists, or would help a lot of aspiring artists. So, I mean, especially if you show the painting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel, was to eventually get to that point. I mean, what I'm doing now is I'm just showing a lot of process videos, and a lot of it was sometimes for my classes. Sometimes it was just for people that wanted something lighthearted to draw with their kids while they're on the lockdown. The things I'd put on there, both a parent and a kid could draw together. So I've done a lot of little Disney sort of cartoon characters and characters, but there's also some of there's a big horror one I'm doing as well with all the horror icons. And that's
cool.
on there as well. Yeah, so you can see the process of how I did the Wolfman and Nosferatu, and so they're on there as well. It shows, and I show you how I gouache and do that. But I will be putting some tutorial based ones on there on how to do the layers, and I think a lot of it, like I get that question a lot, is I don't know how you do it. And there's no, for me, I mean, and I guess I'm speaking for most artists, is there's no magic to it. There's no hidden gift of grace to it. A lot of it has to do with your way you think.
Right.
And it's how you perceive light and shadow, but how you perceive space and texture, And for me, when I prepare for a picture, it doesn't. I'm not just jumping straight in and doing a Jackson Pollock. Even Jackson Pollock didn't do that. But a lot of it has to do with me as I'm drawing Tombstone. I'm not just drawing this. I'm visualizing everything about him, what's happening behind his head. I'm visualizing the weight of his forehead, the shadow of his eyes. I'm pulling the face as I'm drawing it. I'm one of those artists that make the lightsaber sounds as I paint the lightsaber. So zoom, zoom. But if I'm painting Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm doing a hello there as I'm going along. But it's making sure that I'm getting that feeling, and I have that intention of what the artwork looks like. I see it in my mind's eye before I begin to do it. And a lot of the concept work I do for the comics is the same. I spend a lot of time in the week thinking about it. So by the time I get to the board, my mind's already calibrated. It's ready to go.
Real quick, Heather's with us. Heather Ellen. Hey, how you doing? She said she loves those. So Heather did stay conscious. That's cool. She was saying that she was really tired. So thanks for coming out.
I'm glad you're awake, Heather. It's good.
So now, talking about drawing from your mind. Now, my wife is, in my opinion, she never had a class, never had any instruction. She is a very naturally gifted person. She's really talented. But like all artists probably start out, she can't draw for her. She's not confident drawing from her mind.
Yeah.
And this is killing her confidence, which
Yep.
is a very big shame because
Yeah.
she's really good. And with instruction and with with time, she's could be phenomenal. I mean, I already think she's great.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not being biased either because before we dated, I thought she was talented. So,
Yeah.
what would you recommend? What advice would you give to somebody to help them learn how to draw from their mind?
So I suppose it's a practice of being able to just quieten yourself and understanding what it is you want to draw. If I'm sitting down and I'm drawing a feather, um, I am I'm bringing this feather into this reality. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm channeling it in, and it's coming through me, and it's coming into this reality. But it also marries with the hours and hours I've spent building the technique, right? So if I'm drawing a feather on a bit of paper, right, and I imagine what that feather is going to look like, I know that when I start with the stem, right, I know what I want that stem to feel like as it sits in reality. I know as I start to do the hairs on the feather itself, I know that if I start doing this flicking technique, that's going to give me a certain effect, right?
Right.
So it's building and marrying what arrives in your mind with marrying that with the ability of your hand, and that is what art is. It's being able to interpret. Like the people like Jack Kirby just amaze me. Like the fact that he was so trained in channeling what he could think that he would not even sketch out his page. He would just start the top left hand corner and work his way to the bottom without making a
Right.
mistake. And that's an amazing ability to be able to focus his mind's eye and marry that with his ideas. I mean, he was constantly creating. I mean, to the point where he didn't even drive his car at the end of his time because he was too busy thinking of the projects he's working on. So
Huh.
he was always in that dimension of creativity. And I think I would advise anyone that wants to start art that there is, even though you were taught to think this way, that there is nothing wrong with tracing to begin with. There's nothing wrong with getting something and putting it over the top of it and tracing it out, just so you can get your hand confident with shapes,
Okay.
with copying how to do tones. I mean, that's why art schools get you to get you to paint like the masters. They get you to copy a Rembrandt or a Da Vinci, because
Right.
they know the lessons you learn as you go through mixing those same colours that you go through when you are using the same line work, or whether you're trying to come up with the same shapes, that they are invaluable lessons, because that's training your mind to interpret before you start drawing. And a good art teacher will say to you, think about the piece, walk around it before you draw it.
Right.
And if I'm drawing a feather, I'm not only just seeing this, I'm seeing behind the feather. I'm feeling the feather. Like Bruce Lee used to say, don't think, feel. You got to feel what that is you're drawing before you're doing it. And that's it. That's where the magic is. The magic is how the mind then travels through into the hand, and you get the convincing texture. And I don't draw things that are photorealistic, and I say that to my students all the time. I do create realism, but I create a realism on the page.
Right.
All I'm trying to do is make it feel convincing for people, so that when they look at my work, they can walk in there and they can feel they can walk around Rhino's head and feel the horn on his head, or they can feel the texture of that bird's feather, or they can feel the power in Kingpin's glare. Like that's for me, that's realism, is the feeling you get from it. Like I look at Norman Rockwell, I look at Alex Ross, I look at some of these artists that are incredible realists and incredible what I would call illustrators. And the trap can be sometimes is that as much I love Alex Ross's work. It's what got me back into comics, really. But sometimes his work can look a bit static. Sometimes it can look a bit too frozen in time.
Right.
I love the romanticism and the Greek mythology look about his work, but sometimes you can be caught in the ability of you being able to do it. I can do this. I can make this so realistic and amazing that people are going to love it, and you lose the impact of the movement or
The energy off the page. Right.
correct. So I want to feel like You know, I don't want people caught in the fact that I haven't got Hulk's features right. I wanted people to feel the power of the Incredible Hulk, you know?
Or the anger, exactly, or the energy.
Yes, you got the absolute fury and the trauma. I want people to feel that, you know?
It's funny that you use that example because when I was looking at your work and the expressions like in the Green Goblin, I was thinking to myself, I would love to have you do a Hulk one day because I want to feel that rage from the
Yeah,
page. Not to sound
yeah.
like Dr. Seuss, rage from the page. But anyway, that's crazy. You know what always amazes me about artists? What I find the most interesting is the use of negative space, where you just
Correct.
didn't draw, you drew around that space, but that wound up being the shine on a helmet
Right.
or the light source when you ink. You know what I mean? I just find that incredible that
Well,
you know
it's
in your mind, all right, I'm not going here, and
yeah,
that becomes something,
because you know when you're doing a paint or anything, when you're doing a drawing or you're taking a photo, you need space for your mind to rest.
right?
You know, unless you want to deliberately unnerve the audience and have something so busy and so with a Dutch tilt to the camera or something so hectic that you want them to feel stressed out or you want them to feel um, that it's incredibly manic or hectic, then that's a deliberate intention. But
Yeah, that
if I'm
overwhelming feeling, right? When the
yeah,
backgrounds are so busy that they bleed into the
right.
foreground,
And sometimes, and everyone knows this that reads comics. I mean, you go into those comic shops, they are the covers that get lost.
right?
You know, they're so busy that you lose what it is. Sometimes it's the very quiet, simple covers that really jump out. Some of the Daredevil covers where they use black and red and whites, and they just stand straight off the page because you think, oh my god, like what's that? Is that
Less,
white cover's attracting me? Yeah. So less is more sometimes, and the impact of that quiet can hold more power than a busy background.
that's incredible work,
And you got to give your viewer time to rest and recover and go back in. You know, like it's
right?
you can't have main meal after main meal.
Well, depends on who you talk to, but and it depends
Yeah,
on
that's right. Yeah, jab of the
what.
heart maybe. Yeah, it's different.
Lou has a follow-up question. He says it's much easier drawing modern recreations than Silver Age for me. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
I think sometimes they're a product of their time. You know, like it's I look, my favorite superhero is Superman. It always has been. Ever since I've read my first Kurt Swan when I was a kid. I was like, that's to me Superman. You know, watching George Reeves with my dad when I was a kid. You know, it's that was Superman to me. You know, but I struggle to draw Superman. You know, because he's such a period of his time that if unless I draw him in that period of time, it's very tricky. You know, and Bronze Age is probably easier for me to draw than Silver Age because I can make it look more convincing, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's closer towards contemporary life for me. Um, I don't know if that answers the question. I'm not sure. Is that what he was after?
I don't know. He'll follow up in the chat.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't answer, but hit me up again.
I tend to think too. It's you what you're comfortable with. What you can relate to is what you're comfortable
Yeah,
with. What you're comfortable with is what you're gonna stylistically be able to draw, probably. So,
right. Yeah, like I could sit down and draw Battle of the Planets, which I used to love as a kid.
oh yeah,
And that was one of my favorite properties. But I'd struggle to sit down and draw a story about the Thunderbirds because that was not my era. Even though I saw the reruns, it
right,
was not my era. So it's a different aesthetic, I suppose, and I guess it's what you're used to. You know.
right. So you were talking about Superman fan, which it's funny. I'm a huge Superman fan and a Hulk fan equally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
for reasons I can relate to.
Yeah.
I aspire to be Superman, but I often give in to my anger of the Hulk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so take us back. What got you into art? What got you to start wanting to draw?
Look, my mum was a good drawer, and Dad could draw too, but he really had the time to do it. But so I was always nurtured at a young age to always colour in and draw, and I guess our time growing up was a lot different. You know, we didn't have those distractions that are out now, and I suppose we were trained to use our imagination. You know, like
Right.
I was the kid that went to the original Star Wars with my dad. You know, like that was I was there in '77. You know, it's
Me too.
so you we would you wouldn't see that again for years. You know, because there was no VHS. You waited for a year for it to be on telly, and if you missed it, you had to wait another year.
Right.
So I was, like I remember getting up in the middle of the night watching King Kong because Dad come and got me. Quick, come and watch King Kong because it won't be on again for another year.
Right.
So now in a world where everything is delivered so quickly, it's a different environment of absorption of media. You know, so I was trained to draw a lot because that was my way of getting what I wanted out on the page. You know, more than just action figures.
Right.
But I was always watching cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, and loved all of that stuff. And I think my first comic book was Judge Dredd. My dad bought me my first one. It was
Oh, really?
the Judge Child Quest, and he bought me a Spider Man and a couple of others as well. But the Brian Bolland art, it just stood out to me just so strongly, and I just fell straight into the world of comics after that. Everything had to be, I'd read them to death. I'd read the letters pages.
Yeah.
I'd draw the panels. Practicing drawing the panels. I'd read that How to Draw, Marvel Comics by John Buscema. Like
Of course.
and just trying to learn from the masters. I saw them as the masters. And then by the time the '90s hit, like I was right there, ready for the McFarlanes and the Silvestris and the Liefelds to
Right.
launch their energy-based, action hero-based artwork, and I was reading New Mutants when it changed to X-Force, and I was seeing them when Jim Lee first arrived with Colossus on the front cover,
Oh yeah. I love
That
that.
would be a jam piece I'd love to do. I'd love to do an X-Men's one. An X-Men one would be fun.
Yeah,
But
Nightcrawler and Colossus are my favorites.
Colossus is fantastic. But I love that Silvestri era of Colossus, that
Yeah.
he's one of the greats. I love his stuff, especially Inferno. The Inferno series is one of my favorites.
I actually
But
think Silvestri is my favorite artist. I mean, I know
oh,
I love Jim Lee too, but Silvestri, if you look at his pencils, oh my God, the line detail is insane.
absolutely. And he had that real Alex Toth ability to leave out things that weren't
Right.
necessary. And I think one of the criticisms I'd have when I look back at '90s art is that it was very busy with extra flacking of pencil and line work that sometimes were unnecessary. Like
Right.
you can get away with it without doing 50,000 frown lines. But I think with Silvestri's work, the beauty of his stuff I find is it doesn't have as much of a repetition of faces. Like I can look at some of those '90s work, and they were working hard, those guys. But I can see some of the faces all look the same. Some of the females
Hmm.
all look the same. There's a repetition in their recipe and how they do it.
Right.
But they were forging new ground, and I have great gratitude for what they did. Because it really, like when Image Comics formed, and I was 18 when it came out. I was ready for that stuff. It's fantastic. Um, it's just an amazing period in time that I was lucky enough to be around in. But getting back to the comic stuff, I mean, that's what got me in was that early artwork, and just seeing the adventures on the page and the storytelling and that was my world. I'd go into that book and no one else was with me. I could escape to that little world there of reading Captain America or reading reading Buscema's Wolverine run, that he did, the early Wolverine run. That was fantastic with Madripoor and Patch and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So yeah,
Absolutely.
fantastic stuff.
So, are you reading comics now? Do you read any titles?
Yeah, I try to. I struggle a little, and I'll admit this. I mean, I'm not. I would admit it if Jim Lee was in the room. I struggle with contemporary comics a bit because I don't feel as connected as much as I wanted to. Like
Yeah.
I tried reading Superman, and I didn't feel like that was my Superman.
He's
I
always angry now, or like they draw him.
yeah
I think power is in anger. His
yeah
power was never in his anger; it was in his nobility.
correct. He was to me he symbolized hope and
Humility,
and
nobility, integrity,
correct.
all the
Yeah
characteristics that we should be aspiring to be. That's what made him Superman, not his
yeah
powers. the fact that he had those abilities, he could do whatever he wanted, but he had a
Yeah,
conscience, he had a code.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, and I think that's where I felt that they kind of fell short with the movies too. Is that they tried to pander to having him as this dark Superman, but so to me, the bright colors are what he represents hope
Hmm.
and aspiration and something to be more of. Like he doesn't need to be Batman. The Batman has his role. Like
What I think it is,
Superman.
though, I think people are attracted to Batman more at this point, or a
Yeah,
flawed Superman, because
yeah,
they. I think instead of aspiring to be more than they are now, people get turned off when they're reminded that they're not that.
yeah, yeah,
Like people love Batman because, like, oh, he can beat someone like Superman. A human being can, get to that level. I'm sorry, Superman will beat a Batman in 5 seconds. But anyway,
yeah,
I think that people know, I mean, in general, aren't looking at what they aspire to be anymore. They're more like, I just want to turn a blind eye because I'll never be that. So don't show it to me. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a shame. But I agree with you on Superman, and I agree with you, and Steve also does. He says lack of connection to today's comics. Exactly. I don't think today's comics are meant for us.
Yeah.
Uh, Lou said, remember in the 90s when every Marvel male character almost always had overly large muscles and the wrists were almost always drawn as wide and muscular as their biceps, even the widths were the same.
Yeah, I do.
But
And
again,
a
that's
thousand pouches of glory.
yeah, that's them going with what's big at the moment, big and dynamic. It's like supersize my Happy Meal, bigger and
Yeah,
louder, you know,
yeah,
and and that's the thing with comics. There's always that question: is it the writing or is it the art or is it both? And I would like to
mm,
think both, but the Image Days tells me art. It's an art
yeah,
medium, visual medium, and even books that aren't written the best, if they have that quality of art, people are going to turn out.
yeah. I think it's I've seen the pendulum swing both ways. I guess it's a tricky marriage between the two. Like, yes, it is a visual medium, but we've seen the paradigm of one being heavier and more popular than the other. We've seen like I was there when comics sort of spiraled into this turmoil of the speculator boom, and then we had comics where I'd go down and buy it, and I'd read through it, and I don't want to name the artist, but I'd read through it and go, that was empty to me. Like, the art was great, and it had two double page spreads, but there was nothing. There's no substance in that story. But then we'd see it swing the other way, where the stories were great, but the art turned me off. So it's got to be this marriage of aesthetic, of having the art that really helps to, my job when I read Andrew's scripts, when he sends them to me, and I read through the script, my job is to pay honor to the
Sure.
integrity of his story, but it's also my job is to then bring it into a reality that enhances it. It's supposed to marry with it and enhance it.
Right.
It's not meant to showcase me above him or him above me. It's a co-creation. It's a co-labor, a collaboration. So it's got to be something where the two go together. And when they're out of sync or out of balance, that's when you get, that's sometimes when you get I don't know how many podcasts I've listened to where you hear the writer talk about his comics, but he doesn't mention any of the artists.
Right.
Um, and I think that's a real tragedy, because it's a visual medium that otherwise go to write a novel. Like, it's got to be a marriage between the two creators and without ego.
Oh, good luck
You
with
know,
that. It's kind of like the rock band, trying to.
yeah,
The successful rock bands were able to overcome their egos that would cause issue between a
right,
paint team. But it's funny though, because the thing is, like, Judge Dredd. I always liked the character. Never read a book because the art always turned me off.
yeah,
Now I'm gonna get lambasted for this, but League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I've been told how great a book that is, and I believe it. But the art
yeah,
to me was a total turnoff.
yeah, yeah. Look, it's got to resonate with you, and there's nothing wrong with not liking it. You know, like there's people that don't like my stuff, and that's fine. I don't care.
What the
You know,
hell?
I do what I enjoy. You know, I do what I enjoy, and like some people like Frank Miller's artwork, some people hate it. You know, like
Yeah,
some people don't understand
yeah,
Kirby's.
after
Some
that, I
people,
was a Miller fan.
yeah, like some people don't understand Kirby's stylistic choices. I didn't for a long time. I thought, what's this guy's hands all about? They don't make sense. But then when you understand what he's doing,
Right.
and he's breaking that fourth wall, then you understand a little bit more about the art, you know. And it just sometimes it comes with awareness and learning. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you. You know, there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that.
But there's part of me
There's
that
enough out there.
good stories because of it. But every time I try to open one of those books to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I'm like, oh my God, this art is just oof. No
Yeah,
offense
yeah,
to the artists because I can't do what they do, but
yeah,
I'm not saying they're a bad artist. I'm saying stylistically, it just wasn't for me.
yeah. And look, you know, there's people that love abstract art. There's some people that don't. You know, like
Right.
there's enough for everyone. There's enough such stylistic choices for everyone, isn't there? Some
Yeah.
people love anime and manga.
See,
You know,
I'm
some
not
people can't
I'm
stand it.
not an abstract guy, and I can appreciate anime and manga in the right setting. I
Yeah.
don't want them doing that to the X-Men, but you know. So
Yeah,
you're teaching right now, right?
I am. I teach part time. I was working as the deputy principal of the school there for a while, for about 8 years. But then I just focused more upon, you know, doing this sort of creative field stuff for a couple of days a week. And I was lucky enough that I've got a boss that, you know, was happy to accommodate that. So that was, you know, hats off to Marie and being able to say, you know, if that's what you want to do, go do it. Get it out of your system, you know. So it's been great to be able to shift gears for a bit and work in a different field, because you know you can sit there and think about it, or you can go and do it. So it's
Right.
you know, I was lucky enough, I suppose, that I've worked for a number of years to be able to get that far ahead that I can make a few chances and choices, and my amazing wife is able to say, "Yep, do it."
Hey, and I always say every great man has a great woman standing right next to him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, not behind him, right next to him.
Well, it's another co-creation, a collaboration, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely. Listen, it's like Rocky. Without Adrian's support, he can't go in there and fight.
That's right. That's right.
You need that. You need that absolutely. Without my wife, I don't know where I'd be, but
Yeah.
that is the truth. And I'm telling you, when you're done with that thing, you got to give me first dibs on the original. That is incredible. I think the Shocker is my favorite.
Oh yeah. I've got Electro to do yet too. So
Yeah, I
that
was
should
going
be
to ask you
interesting.
about him. So do you have another row you're going to do down there?
I've got another 2 rows after this one.
Oh my God! Yeah, I got
So
to buy.
I'll give it a hit list. Hang on, I'll read it to you. Where have I put it? Here it is. So what am I
Tarantula.
up to? Yep. So I've got finishing Craven. That's next to Tombstone. Then I've got Hobgoblin, Doctor Doom, Scorpion, Puma, Electro, Molten Man,
Oh,
Morbius, Silver Sable, Manwolf, Tarantula. That's your boy, Tarantula.
yeah.
Sticks and Stone, Carrion, Chameleon, Carnage,
Oh wow.
Shriek, the Doppelganger. I'm putting Punisher in there because I love Punisher. Tinkerer. Um,
Man, you're getting everybody.
yeah, I was just trying to get all the main ones in there. You know,
You got to get
and
Vermin.
the brothers Grimm is the last one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So there's some deep cuts going back to the '90s there, but you know, it
Now,
makes it interesting.
would you want to work for one of the big publishers if you had the opportunity, or are you happy being independent?
Well, look, either way. I mean, I love being able to be the captain of the ship. Who
Yeah.
doesn't, you know? But look, it's certainly on a bucket list. I'd love to do some work for the big ones, but you know, it's also a case of being responsible as a dad and a husband. You know, I've got bills to pay as well, and
Right.
sometimes the rates for a comic artist isn't quite what it should be.
That's for sure.
Um, but look, I'd definitely be open to doing some freelance cover work or some internals. You know, just to say I could do it.
I was going to say
Um,
cover work would probably be great for you at this point to just get a cover done and bang it out, be
yeah,
published, right?
that'd be super fun. Look, I mean, my main if I was to name a goal, I'd love to do some stuff on Star Wars. I mean, that would be my main.
Hell
That's
yeah.
my that's my that's my that's my stuff. That's my shit. I love Star Wars. That's my stuff.
So who are your favorite characters in Star Wars?
Look, I mean, I always leant to the villains when I was a kid. I was always more of the bounty hunters and all that kind of stuff. But I think if I was to connect with the characters, I think probably Obi-Wan, the old Obi-Wan, would be one that always resonated with me as a kid. Just because I just loved Alec Guinness, which is fantastic. And so it'd be interesting to see what they do with the new series coming out.
Now, again, people may not have seen it yet, so no spoilers, okay? But did you watch The Mandalorian?
I do. I watched it. I watched it when it came out.
Oh, did you see episode 1 of season 2?
Yes, it was amazing.
I was. It was, it felt like a long time since I've seen stuff that was just a fun, action-packed, just fun, good old style show. And then that ending, was like, oh,
so good, so good. Yeah.
Man, I was excited.
It's the kind of stuff that you, when you play with your figures when you're a kid, it's the adventure you've made up that they never showed.
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. By the way, Ross was mentioning Maul versus Obi-Wan. They had Rebels.
The Rebels, yes, I saw that. Yep.
And they had a fight between the Alec Guinness, the older Obi-Wan, and Maul finally coming for revenge.
Yeah.
Part of me loved how it went down because it showed you how powerful Obi-Wan was and stuff. And part of me was like, a little longer, just a little more.
Yeah, you kind of just wanted that bit extra, but it just showed his evolution as a character where Maul was still stuck in anger and hate and had not really evolved. Whereas Obi-Wan he let go of that. He wasn't. You can see that the way he changed the lightsaber. He wasn't in the same stance as he was when he was younger. He'd evolved to a more wiser man.
Even the compassion he showed at the end there for him.
He's holding him in his arms, cradling him. Like this is the guy that killed Qui-Gon.
And was trying to kill him several times.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Keith said he loves the Tusken Raiders. He always thought they were cool looking. I agree, and it was nice to see them in there. And it was good to show another side to the Tusken Raiders, that they weren't just animals.
Yeah, it was almost like I loved, and this isn't a spoiler because you'll,
we're not going to spoil for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. So
it's not a spoiler, but I think I love the spaghetti western feel of the episode.
I'm glad you said that because I mentioned that to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can hear the.
Oh my, we lost Will. All right, let's see if we can get him back. While we're waiting for him to come back, feel free to chime in your thoughts on The Mandalorian in the chat without spoilers. There are people who have not seen it probably. People get busy with work. Only episode 1 came out 3 to 4 days ago, so don't spoil, but you're welcome to chat about it there. So while we're trying to get Will back, you've seen his art. It's amazing, and his painting and everything like that. He only wanted me to give you his Facebook, but definitely follow him if you don't. Will Pleydon on Facebook. You won't be disappointed. I mean, for whoever came in late, if you go to the beginning of the episode, he showed some Star Wars art that he did that was painted, and it was gorgeous. I mean, they were gorgeous. Did Greedo, he did Dengar, which is one of my favorites, Princess Leia. Excuse me, and they were painted beautifully. I mean, absolutely beautifully. And if I had the money right now, I'd probably be buying everything he's showing you on the video because they were amazing. No, Lou, we're not going to spoil. Don't worry. But you need to watch it and get to the end before somebody screws up and spoils it for you, because Mandalorian, I thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, I really think that Filoni and Favreau or whatever need to do a Han Solo movie. If they're going to do Han Solo again, do a sequel, I think Filoni and Jon Favreau should do the Han Solo sequel, and they will do it justice. I also think they should recast Solo, but that's another story. And we got Will back.
I'm back. Sorry.
He's back with a vengeance. I was just talking about the Star Wars that you drew for everybody to go back and look when it showed up, and we were talking about Mandalorian, spoiler free. So
Yeah, good. Yeah.
your video is bad, but let's see if your audio is okay. Hi, Christina. Thanks for showing up. I mean, as a matter of fact, can you show, if you can get your video a little clearer, can you show for people who came in late, all that art you showed us, the Star Wars and everything? Because it was incredible. And he froze. I think we lost him again. All right. Well, let's hope he gets that worked out. Working at FedEx makes it easier. Well, don't get in trouble on my account, but I do appreciate you watching. The Mandalorian to me isn't just reviving my feelings for Star Wars, the Star Wars universe, and all the nods that they gave to the original series. It also is just showing me that we can do a retro feel to TV again. I mean, I grew up on old stuff like Buck Rogers and things like that. But not only is this feel like those old adventures that we loved, but you're getting cinematic effects. I mean, they have practical effects and they have CGI mixed in this, and they do a top-notch, top quality effects in the show. So I mean, imagine growing up like you're probably my generation to ever think that we would be getting a show like this with movie quality effects of this caliber on TV. So
yeah, it's amazing.
I can't wait for the Obi-Wan.
It's incredible. Oh, I can't wait either. I mean, I suppose it's interesting the time was shutting down like they did, but it's been incredible to just have it into your bedrooms. It's this kind of thing that you dreamed of when you were a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Do I think remake? Christina asked, do we think remakes or reboots are getting a bit much? Absolutely, but that's why I like this, because to me, it's something new and fresh with nostalgia wrapped into one. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, like I think if they're building on the mythology, I mean, I think that's a different thing. If they're, I mean, we've all that have been made for cinemas that have rehashed old, like I hear they're making a Smokey and the Bandit one going to work. I mean, they're trying to do different things.
Your video is freezing and your audio, it's hard to understand.
All right, let me try and get it into there.
So, yeah, you see, that's the thing is, it's hard not to remake or reboot in a way, as far as paying an homage to something. Like if you're doing just a straight up copying again, yeah, that's been out of hand. But I don't mind an homage of some kind, because I mean, if you think about it, music, arts of all kinds, you are taking from something. You know what I mean? It's hard to be totally original these days with thousands and thousands of stories out there and character designs and stuff. So if you can take something and pay an homage to something, but bring something new to it as well as that nostalgic feel, I think that's a good mix to get people interested. I mean, let's face it, Boba Fett was a big character in the original Star Wars, and when you see the Mandalorian, because he has the same armor, you're kind of getting to see what Boba Fett would be doing in fights and in situations with the jetpack and the missile and all the things that you didn't get to see Boba Fett do in the movie. The Mandalorian gets to do with the armor here. So it's new and it's not new at the same time, and I think it's a good mix that they're doing. Yeah, I like a sampling of some kind. And Will is trying to get back in. Do we have him?
I'm back. I'm back. Can you hear me?
All right. You're good. You're clear.
All right, good. Sorry. It's one of the things you give up when you live in the country. You give up Wi-Fi.
So can you do me a favor, just because we're on the topic of Star Wars again, can you show everybody who showed up late again those Star Wars pieces?
Sure. Yep, let me just get them.
I want people to see your artwork again, and some people probably came in late. Yeah. Aren't the sand people all either? John Ottinger.
All right, you there? Okay,
Yeah, we're here.
I'll just flip through.
Sorry, I just I don't mean.
Right, that's one I did of the Emperor. Well, I don't know if I showed you that
Wow,
one.
look at that. That's so
The
nice.
Emperor.
Awesome.
So just giving him that kind of special evil effect.
Oh, anger.
Let's see. I'll try and find where those Star Wars. Oh, here we go. Here's a Luke Skywalker I did. Yeah.
Oh wow, look at the detail on that. That is awesome. Beautiful.
There we
So
go.
keep saying you'd love to see a Captain Rex series.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. The Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That's a Princess Leia one I did. There you go.
Yeah, I love that. That's really nice. Yeah, every time I see her now, I think of Spaceballs where she takes the headphones off. Every
Yes.
time I see that scene,
Yes.
I love it. Who asked if there's any watercolor or pencils used in those drawings?
Look, I think the only time I've ever used a little bit of pencil, I'll just show you on the Leia one. All right, so you can see, if I get in close enough, you can see just a little bit of brown pencil I've used just to fine up some of those edges.
Wow.
But most of the time it's just layers of gouache. So it's just about creating, so like even something you see on her chin line there, it's about having the light and the shade,
Right.
creating that edge, you know. So it's not so much overlaying of pencil work, because sometimes, unless you're careful, the pencil doesn't work with the gouache as well.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes if I just want to get a nice little sharp edge on something, then I'll use a bit of pencil work just to finish it off. Like I did the Bride of Frankenstein, like the Bride and Groom.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Classic. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It looks like
So
a still taken from the.
So
Wow.
some of her hair was tricky, you know, so I had to get in there with a little bit of white pencil here and there just to make it pop.
Lou says that's staggeringly stunning.
Thank you. I appreciate the staggeringly stunning. Yeah.
Christina Valdez is asking a question I was going to ask you, actually, so I'll give her the credit. She said, wow, it's amazing, but what are the oddest commission pieces you have ever been requested to do or ever done?
The oddest ones. Well, I mean, generally, if they're a bit, it's probably more tattoo art that's been strange, rather than painted commissions. I mean, because often if they're going to pay for a commission piece, they tend to rethink silly choices.
Oh, we've gotten some crazy stories, though. Yeah, so
yeah, like if they're going to pay for the money for a gouache painting, they're not going to,
right.
I suppose, be as whimsical with their choices. You know, like, but the tattoo art, sometimes people tend to want everything compressed into one image, and that doesn't always work. You know, and so sometimes I've just had to say, I'm sorry, I can't include the topless female and, you know, combined with an animal, and, you know, like they want everything in there. I want my spirit animal, I want my ideal woman, I want, you know, I want an atomic bomb in the background, but I want some ancient Greek letters around outside, and I want the meaning of life. You know, it's just too much. So sometimes you just got to say, look, I'm sorry that you want that interpretive, you know, dance on your back, but we're not going to do that. That's not going to work. You know, that's a migraine I don't need.
So do you do get a lot of tattoo art requests though, so they can bring it to the tattattoo artist to copy? Or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it depends. Like mostly animals. Like, I just did a grizzly bear one lately, because you know you wanted a grizzly bear on his shoulder. But sometimes it's things like I just want a cue ball, like a number 8 cue ball, you know. But it's you know, it doesn't come down as much as it used to, but it was for a while there a bit of a thing where people just wanted, you know, I wanted a bit of Native American Indian head, or I wanted, you know, and so you got to try and figure out, well, there's two things. You've got to figure out a style that's going to work in the tattoo world, because they're not always going to find a Kat Von D to be able to pull off the realism when they go to put it on their back. So you got to find that balance of stylistic choices that it's going to work for them, if that makes sense.
Make it an iron-on. You just, you know.
Don't worry. We'll get some ointment for the burns later.
But it'll be all right. If you could work on a creative on a major published book, what character would you want to do?
It's a tricky one. I mean, you've always got uh, the big toys to play with, but I really like the idea of one of my favorite books that have come out is Black Sad. I mean, that's probably the one that really, I still read that with absolute joy when I read through those books. I'd prefer an alternate universe kind of stuff like that. Um, One where you haven't got a lineup of people that are screaming at you because it hasn't fit in with canon, and you sort of like Gaiman did with Sandman, took it in a different direction. Um, but I'd love to do something like that where you take a side character and just tell a story, like do a story on the Question. That would be a great detective noir story. That sort of set in that Humphrey Bogart Big Sleep kind of universe where he's uncovering, a missing item or a murder scene,
Right.
or even if you were going to do a character like Batman, taking him back to his detective roots, really doing something that's a mystery novel. You're really unraveling. It's not just about these ginormous big battles, but it's about sometimes the subtlety of trying to figure out what's happened to who done it. I find that's exciting. There was a great story that came out, The Many Deaths of Batman. It came out in the 90s. It was one of my favorite lines where all of his people that had trained him were turning up dead in Batman costumes, and there was no words in the book. In the first book, it's just speechless. So you had to picture it together and find out what was going on. And it had a great cover of Jim Gordon standing in the morgue, and it had all the body trays have pulled out, and it had all these Batman costumes with people in Batman costumes, all in different poses of death. And I thought, what a great lure in for a story. I'd love to do something like that, and lean into that sort of that comic noir sort of detective, but just a story that really grabs you in, like another world building kind of story, rather than the big bad sort of stuff. I thought Court of Owls was great. I watched the Court of Owls, and that was fantastic. I read the Court of Owls, and that was a great storyline. I enjoyed that.
Lou asked if you could amalgamate two existing characters together, which characters would you choose?
Wow. Geez, that's a tough one. Just like merge them together to become one.
Yeah, like do you remember the '90s? They amalgamated DC Marvel, like it was Doctor Strange, Fate, and it was Dark Claw was Batman and Wolverine, and
yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because a lot of them are ciphers for each other on either side of the universe, aren't they? Like the Wonder Womans and the Supermans had their own versions in the other universe. I think it'd be interesting to perhaps merge, even something like some of the X-Men's villains, the Reavers, with the actual X-Men.
cool.
So a merger of those two, and just see a different storyline where the cybernetics were starting to take control of, the AI. In a world that we're facing where that's almost a scary reality. I mean, it's that would be an interesting take.
Cool. And Keith was going back and asking again, who is your favorite Star Wars character? You said Obi-Wan, Sir Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I loved Obi-Wan. But look, I love the characters in the Rogue One movie. I enjoyed that incredibly. That's one of my favorites now.
The last 30 seconds to a minute with Vader is all I needed to like that movie.
That's again the toys that we wanted to play with.
That's all I needed.
Yeah, but just seeing Vader's castle, that was I'd watch a whole Vader movie. That would be a fantastic experience of seeing that. And
I always thought they should do a movie that is both Vader and Obi-Wan, and where it is it's showing Vader hunting down the rest of the Jedi, while in contrast showing Obi-Wan settling into Tatooine and watching over Luke.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the Kenobi series, because there is a line that he says in A New Hope where he says Vader is he's more machine now than man. I mean, he didn't know that. I mean, he left him burning on the edge of the lava. So maybe they had another confrontation. Maybe there's a point where he saw him. We don't know those parts of the story of his lost years on the desert planet. Like maybe he didn't stay on the planet.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. I'd love to do that as a graphic novel. Just sit there and do a Kenobi series, a watercolored Kenobi series on Tatooine. That'd be a fantastic thing to do.
Oh hell yeah. And that's the thing is, I mean, they just had a Vader 25 issue run where they showed him hunting down some of the Jedi, so they've touched on that. But that's one part of Star Wars that has been in, you don't know what happened all these years is Obi-Wan on Tatooine while Luke was growing up. I mean, that's 18 years that we don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah.
Sure, aged a lot from Ewan McGregor to Sir Alec Guinness in
right. But I'd love to do a graphic novel just on Dengar. He'd be a great character to paint. Just like what happened to him. How did all of this, and what are the effects on him as a human being that's got to live in this world where he's clearly damaged, and barely held it together, and just seeing his story unfold. That would be a fun one. What is his relation to those other dudes that were standing on the bridge of the Death Star?
Yeah,
Forlom and Zuckus and
IG-88 and
IG-88. What a great character, what's the relation to all these other characters and how they knew each other? Why did he choose? Why are those ones chosen out of all the bounty hunters in the galaxy?
Right. John Otter said that he watched a lot of cable TV while he was on Tatooine.
Yeah, probably.
He was watching your YouTube channel, watching all your art tutorials.
Oh yeah, well hopefully he's got better Wi-Fi than I do.
So, are you available for commissions right now?
I've got a couple of jobs to do, but my commissions are opening up again probably mid-November.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of jobs to clear out of the way, but then they'll be wide open. So if people do want commissions or they want to reach out to me and talk about price lists and maybe what their ideas are. I mean, I don't often put a price list out there because people's ideas vary so much. It changes the notion of the time spent on it and the materials used. So, but if they want to reach out to me and talk to me about what it is they want, we can negotiate price and I've done that quite a number of times. So yeah, get in early and tell me what it is you want. If you want it before Christmas or if you want it for a gift for someone.
There'd be some great Christmas gifts.
Get in early because I know shipping's a bit crazy at the moment, especially overseas, and we want to make sure we can get it off in time.
Christina asked you the ultimate question.
Yes.
Do you think Star Wars is better than Star Trek?
Oh, look, I used to love The Next Generation because I used to get home from work late at night when I was a student and watch it. I used to watch that and Buffy and a whole bunch of other old TV shows, but nothing to beat the Star Wars for me. Nothing.
That's the thing. For me, I appreciated some of the social commentary and of course the tech and stuff in Star Trek. And I love Captain Kirk because he always found a way, no matter how grim things looked, he always found a way. So I always love that character because I actually take his mantra from Wrath of Khan. I don't believe in an open scenario. I don't. Yeah. You may have to sacrifice something and it may not be 100% what you want, but you can win. Yeah. But having said that, the spiritualism and the mysticism that came with Star Wars is what really elevated it for me. I mean, if you look at the Force, it's kind of, if you think about it, the energy, the life around you. Yeah. And I just found that the mysticism, the spiritualism of that fascinating, along with the mixture of tech.
You're right. I think it's the mythology, it's the fairy tale that dragged me in as a kid. But the more you get older, I suppose, and you read and you see science is uncovering quantum physics and vibrationary levels of creatures and beings, and Obi-Wan was right. Lucas was right. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds us all together in the universe.
He's quoting it. I love it.
It's that knowledge that Joseph Campbell Lucas knowledge of what it is we are all part of on this world. I mean, that's what unifies us. Which it's sad when you see disunity happening in society, but we should be unified. We're all symbiotic with each other. And that's the beauty of that universe. That's what the Jedi taught. Is that and even in the new ones, even though they may not quite always understand the Force like Lucas does, you still see that when there is an imbalance, another balanced being is born. So when there's evil in the universe, only evil, the balance is born through another being. So the balance of the Force is always there. The prophecy is always true. So I love that, and I think that resonates a lot with the hope of what Luke had as a farm boy. Like I teach my kids at school is that like it doesn't matter what side of the tracks you are from or aren't from, or your parents were or weren't. You can still look to the sunset. You can still have those dreams, but you've got to have the dreams.
Right.
Don't look for social media to sort it out for you. You got to aspire to be more and want more and attract more.
So having said that, how'd you feel about the Disney trilogy?
Look, I didn't mind it. I mean, there was certainly moments that choked me up in the first one with Han Solo and. But it wasn't the ones that you think it was. It wasn't him dying or anything. But it was certainly the quiet moments when you walk onto the cockpit of the Falcon and he's smiling, looking at everything. I thought that moment was for me. But I felt it was disjointed as a story, and I think that was just because of the decisions made to change between directors all the time. They didn't really have
a whole story.
Yeah, and I really think they probably should have stalled a little bit and really just got Lucas consulting properly like the original agreement and had something there that represented a continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially having, I didn't mind The Last Jedi as much as everyone hated it, but it was not a number 8. It was like a part 2 to something else. There wasn't a strong middle act.
I hated it. God, I hated it. See,
it wasn't my Luke. It wasn't my Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I always liked Han Solo, but I'm a Luke fan. I was always a Luke fan. Despite his whininess in the beginning, I was always a Luke fan.
Tushy Station. Yeah.
25 freaking years, I waited to see Luke as a Jedi Master.
Yeah.
And they gave me the grumpy, get off my lawn asshole who throws a lightsaber over his shoulder. The second he threw that lightsaber over his shoulder, I looked at my wife and whispered, "Oh shit, what are we in for?"
Yeah. There was unnecessary. Like they could have had Lando come in during the Canto Bight stuff. I don't understand why they didn't do some of those things, but because that really didn't have any meaning.
Star Wars fans, that's why.
Yeah.
They only wanted to bring them off.
What was that?
They only wanted to bring them in to kill them off, so they can move on to what they want to do. Rian Johnson directed Episode 8, had a trilogy on the table, and that's why you saw Jedi slave kids with brooms and all that crap, because he was starting his own world in that universe that he wanted to branch off to, and he wanted to get rid of the Skywalkers and all that continuity that he'd have to follow. He wanted to trash it, so.
Well, thank God for the Mandalorian. Salvation,
So Will, just to recap, Will said in a couple of weeks, the middle of this month, he'd be open for commissions. You can reach him on Facebook at Will Pleydon. DM him, he'll get back to you pretty quickly, and you can talk about what you want, and he'll give you the price, and you can get some nice Christmas gifts. I mean, you saw that Star Wars stuff he's drawing, and you saw or if you don't even like the fantasy stuff, look at the realism of the animals that he draws. I mean, those are beautiful too, if that's your thing as well.
So whatever style, I'm pretty flexible. And I'll put an announcement out on Facebook and the other platforms to just let you know that it's open again. So I just have to make sure that I clear the jobs that I'm doing now because they need to be honoured and given my full attention, and then I'll put a notification out that it's all open again, ready to go. But in the meantime, in between time, definitely reach out to me, add me as a friend on Facebook, or you can follow me on YouTube. Look up The Art of Will Pleydon on YouTube, and bump my followers up, and like you'll see art through there. I'll just keep popping up stuff through there as well, and there'll be some instructional videos coming soon over the break as well. So on different levels, so you can learn to draw with your kids or learn to draw by yourself, whatever you want to do.
Also, cul-de-sac, right? Just again, a brief rundown on that? Why they would want to, why we want to buy this? Because it looks really good. I mean, I got to look at it and I enjoyed it. So
It's had good reviews, and it was received really well, which I'm really pleased with. I mean, you never know when you go into a comic because you love it so much, you don't know what other people are going to think. But it's had really good. It's been received really well, and they can. The elevator pitch for it is it's like a golden book, like an old Lassie golden book, but it's kind of meets Norman Bates Psycho at the same time. It's set in a suburban 1950s environment where, in those days of innocence or apparent innocence, it was safe to walk the streets at night and let your kids play out there outside and come home when the streetlights came on. But it was not quite what it was, and the story that unfolds is all linked together. So even though it's an anthology, the anthology is tied together through this one street of random, bizarre acts of strangeness, ranging from horror to almost science fiction in some areas. It's all hand painted. It's 74 pages, I think it is 74. So it's a fairly chunky book.
where can they get hold of Cul-de-sac?
They can reach out to me for a hard copy. It's just shipping, probably that's a bit of a sting. But they can also get it on Comixology. It's pretty cheap on Comixology.
And you're going to have a follow-up, you said.
Yeah, so we're working on season 2 now. So there is a Cul-de-sac Facebook site that we put our updates on, but it's under the Will Comics, which is SHAWILL Comics, and then that's our publishing brand, and we put all of our updates for Cul-de-sac on there.
Awesome. So, guys, if you like horror and sci-fi anthology stories, go check out Cul-de-sac. You can reach out to Will for it, or go to Shawill, SHAWILL, on Facebook, and then you can check it out there. And if you love it, Cul-de-sac 2 is on the way, season 2. Will, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed watching you draw and the tutorials and answering the questions. And everybody should subscribe to the Art of Will Pleydon channel on YouTube, because if this was any indication of what he can teach you as an artist, or even if you're a good artist pencil wise, but you want to get into painting, the painting aspect, the realism that he has is incredible. I highly recommend go to YouTube, the Art of Will Pleydon, subscribe, hit the bell, follow him, and really we have to support indie creators, especially really talented ones like Will. So please go. It does not cost anything. It takes 30 seconds to hit to get on there and subscribe. It does not cost any time at all. So please go do that.
I appreciate it. And look, none of my arts really talks about politics or religion. Is basically just us escaping and creating on another level without the distraction. So don't fear. There's nothing there that's going to be offensive to anyone, I hope. It's really just all imaginative-based stuff and just us exploring things as comic creators and people that love fantasy and fiction. So that's all it is on the YouTube. There's no commentary on elections or politics or anything like that. In fact, it's steering away from the news and it's going to the creative field, and that's what I'm all about.
I think we need that more than ever. I mean, we really need to support you guys more than ever, just even for our own health and peace of mind, really, because the world is getting to be too much. And if we can, have something beautiful to just admire for a while, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Garcia said, "Great show, fellers. Will, you are a fantastic artist. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming out tonight."
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Keith said, "Great show and a great artist." So I guess when you get off, you're going to have new followers.
Get on
there. Requests on Facebook, and you're going to have a lot of subscribers on your YouTube, right?
That's
right?
Good,
right? Lou, Christina, Keith, Steve, right? Heather, all you guys, right? John out of here, right? All right. Well, if you don't mind hanging out backstage for a minute, you don't, unless you have to go. But thank you so much for coming out. It was a blast having you here. You're welcome to come back when it's time to plug Cul-de-sac season 2.
Yeah.
And I might even get you. I'm going to be doing a Star Wars show with a writer and discussing Star Wars, as well as, and then we might even venture into Star Wars in contrast to Star Trek. I might even invite you on if you want to be on. Big Star
I'd
Wars.
love it.
You got to be
I
on.
love it. I'll even wear my Mandalorian shirt.
If you come with the helmet, it's golden.
Oh, look, and then when our countries finally open up, I'll definitely be back there. I mean, I've been to San Diego a couple of times and New York a couple of times for the Comic-Con, so I'd love to catch up with you guys when I come back over there again.
You come to New York Comic Con, man. We'll go out and get some food. I'll take you somewhere to eat because I go every year. The Comic Con is obviously not during COVID, but every year Comic Con is my vacation. I go for the 4 days.
Yeah.
I'm there the whole time. We're good to go. So.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming out, and I will talk to you in a few minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
So that was episode 30, everybody. I can't believe we hit 30 so far. And Will is a hell of a nice guy, an incredible, incredible artist. And Christina's going to cook for us. Yes. Hey, Gallo showed up. What's going on? Long time no see, bud. So Will, thanks for coming out. Thanks for the tutorials and the education and just the awesome art to look at. I want that Spider-Man villains thing, and I'm gonna have to get that. Anyway, I'm gonna have to sell one of my kids or something because I need to get that. So I do want to say this. I don't talk about politics on the show, but I am gonna say this. We all know what's going on tomorrow. We have the presidential election in the United States. I'm imploring everyone, no matter who wins, we are not our own enemies. We are not enemies of each other. We are a community. We are all one. And no matter who wins, that doesn't have to change. So I'm asking everybody who's watching or everybody who winds up watching this, don't freak out about a temporary president. We're all Americans. We, the people, can make the world good. We can make the country good. We, if we stand together and we unite instead of tear down, can make the difference. Please don't vilify your neighbor because they voted for the other guy. Please don't let two powerful, rich, older people tell us who's good and bad anymore. All right? No matter what the results are, life will go on, but we can make it better together. And I mean that. Please. Don't burn things down. Don't tear things apart. Don't hate the person that you loved just because you found out they voted for the other guy. Please. All right? Be a community. Build. Don't tear down. Build. We can build if we just stay strong together. We're always stronger together, but we have to trust each other. We have to believe in each other, and we have to unite. Unify. No more of this division. No more fighting. No more. Having said that, I love all you guys. Thank you so much for coming out, supporting the show, supporting artists like Will, being part of the conversation, especially the people that come out every night and stay the whole show. God bless you. Thank you so much. And I no matter who wins tomorrow, I wish everyone happiness, health, prosperity, and pursue your dreams. No matter what the world looks like, you have to pursue your dreams. Never live with regret. Go for it. You want it, you get it. But you get it through hard work, determination. You got to bleed. You got to bleed for what you want, but do it. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't or there's a reason why you shouldn't. We are not victims unless we allow ourselves to be in most cases. So go do it. All right? Go out there and live your dream. Having said that, I'm going to tell you what I always tell you. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.